But Sensei said, "Oh, can you chuck my gi in the wash when you wash mine?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no worries." And I said, "Oh, Sensei, you left the belt there." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do with it?" And he goes, "Put it in the washing machine." And I was like,
Ooh. Yeah.
well,
What about the spirits, Reece? Hey guys, and welcome to Karate Over Coffee,
a podcast where we chat about everything and anything related to karate and Kobudo. I'm Reece Cummings, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Cheyne McMahon. Yeah, I think it can be either way. You know, we can see people and we can think that they either do or don't know lots about karate, and actually sometimes it ends up being the complete opposite.
Yeah, totally.
There was another one, and I think this was more recently because I was over there with some students, and more recently, I mean, probably in the last 5 years, I think. But there was we were all catching a taxi to go to a venue, and we got into the taxi, and we're driving along, and the taxi guy goes, "Well, what are you doing here? Where are you going?" And we said, "Okay, we're going here." And he goes, "Oh, that's a dojo. I know where to go. No worries." And we said, "Yep." And he goes, "Oh, have a look at this." And he just reaches into that side pocket of the door and pulls out a photo album just of all his Kobudo weapons collection and photos of him
really?
with his instructors. And he just passed it around the people that were in the car. And I guess it was a cool experience for the students to sort of see, oh, hey, randomly, this guy's here and look at all this cool stuff that we get to look at and hear about.
Yeah. That's incredible. I wish I'd call that taxi.
Yeah.
Well, my wife and my son were staying at is it Tommy Gusuku? Sort of south, maybe 45 minutes out of Naha on the beach side, and we was just staying there for a couple of days. And there was a dojo. It was a Udandi type dojo where they did Udandi and dance and something Kendo maybe, or Kenjutsu or something like that. And every time I went to that dojo to check it out, they were always closed. And I was really, because we were staying there for 4 or 5 days, and I was trying to stay with my family but also check out this dojo. And on the last day, we were driving in back to the airport, and it was open, and I just pull the car in, and I had looked for about 30 seconds, and a guy looked at me and said, "You can't look at this." I'm like, "Oh man." So I had to jump back in the car and keep going. I couldn't believe it.
Well, look, I think those kind of things, just finding random spots of stuff is the fun part of exploring a foreign country, regardless of where it is.
Yeah.
And obviously, if we've got an interest in it, I had, I guess, a little bit of a unique experience in that when I went to Okinawa, at least in the early part of the years, I used to stay at my sensei's house, and I would have a room in there. Like, I know a few other people had stayed there as well, and that'd be my space for the 2, 3, or 4 weeks that I'd be there, and getting that experience as well, like sort of seeing, I guess, a little bit more how things went on in general life. Like you'd wake up. You do some training in the morning. Often that training I'd be doing that on my own, and then at a certain time of the day, if Sensei wasn't busy, he might come in and say, "Oh, hey, do you either want to do some training, or let's go out and grab some breakfast, or even go shopping, or that kind of thing." And then the day would just organically evolve.
Yeah.
So most of the time it'd be that training. After that, we'd go out and have lunch, possibly some afternoon training. Same thing, rest, or you'd go to the beach, or you might be tired, so you'd have a sleep, whatever it might be. And then again, training in the evening. But I don't know what your experiences are, but training in the evening generally starts around 8 o'clock, so quite late.
Yeah. I think most people have a pretty demanding job hour wise. But people would eat at 10 o'clock at night. Whereas in Australia, people are asleep at 8 o'clock at night. So it's a little bit different in the culture and the training. Well, what I really found pretty interesting was with the training, people would turn up whenever. So if the class started at 8 o'clock, for example, they might turn up at 8:20. do 20 minutes or half an hour of training and then potter off.
Yeah.
Whereas here, everybody, class starts at 8, and if you turn up
Yes.
at 8:05, some dojo won't let you train. I don't care. You just turn up when you can. It doesn't bother me, but some dojo won't let you train if you're 5 minutes late. But here we are, the birthplace of karate, and they're way more relaxed than everybody else in the world about schedule.
Well, yeah, I agree as well. And there were people that used to turn up any time of the day while I was there and training. The dojo was just generally open. Like when the sensei got up in the morning, door would go up, and the roller door, and it was basically just left open most of the day.
Yeah.
And if you came in and trained, that was fine. And sometimes there were a couple of people that would do that throughout the day. Sometimes there was none. Sometimes they would literally come in and do some of the exercises like Hojo Undo or that kind of thing, and do that. And again, same thing. Class started at 8. Before, we would generally do zazen, so that we do meditation. And some people would turn up, and they turn up after that, or they turn up before that, or they turn up halfway through the class, stay later, leave halfway. It was very relaxed. Yeah. I was even talking to a student the other day, and we were just talking about the formalities of things. And I was saying, Okinawan karate, there's certainly bowing. You bow generally when you come in. You come in the morning, or Ohayou gozaimasu, or whatever, konbanwa, generic greeting to everyone. And then you pretty much get along and be pretty casual.
Yeah.
And go home, bow, leave. But there's not a lot of that, not at least in my experience, there's not a lot of that formality that surrounds things in the same way that perhaps we try and put on it in the West.
Well, I think the West are trying to adopt a Japanese culture, and then not really understanding, karate is its own culture. Karate is not a Japanese culture. My dojo, we're very relaxed, because for me, karate is its own thing, and we are in Australia, and we have an Australian culture, where we ask questions and those sorts of things. But I think in Okinawa, every dojo that I went to is somebody's house.
Yes.
Somebody's house, their parents, grandparents, whoever the previous dojo was. When I was a kid, I lived in the dojo. Dojo was downstairs and our house was upstairs. But my dad certainly wouldn't open the dojo at any time for anybody.
Yeah.
And I'd never do it again, because we would have people at Friday night, 8:30, knock on the front door and ask about karate classes. And again, it's a different culture, different culture.
I think that's really interesting too, because you're talking about those two different cultures. And I think a lot of karate instructors think about, if I had a dojo in my house, wouldn't that be convenient? And I certainly think it would be. And I know a lot of people have more sort of like private dojos, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
I've thought about that idea. I know my other half certainly doesn't support the idea. And to be honest, I'm not sure I do either, because if you have the public coming to your home, there are other risks and considerations that when you're running a business, I think you have to think about. And that separation becomes very difficult too.
Yeah, definitely.
It does make me think of a couple of experiences though. One may be the most controversial topic ever. However, it's what happened. So we would train, and most of the time after training, sensei would say, because there was a little change room off to the side of the dojo, and around the corner there were 2 washing machines, and generally people would either leave their gis there or their belts or that kind of thing, and that's why your name was on them, so you'd know which ones. But sensei said, can you chuck my gi in the wash when you wash mine? And I said, yeah, sure, no worries. And I said, sensei, you left the belt there. And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, what do you want me to do with it? And he goes, put it in the washing machine. And I was like,
ooh. Yeah. What about the spirits, Reece? The spirits, Itosu's in the belt. Itosu's
exactly,
spirit.
All the blood, sweat, knowleded that you have has to be
Nagamine.
I know it's gonna wash away. I obviously didn't say any of this.
Yeah.
But he just looked at me and he's like, well, it's a sort of like it's a bit of clothing. It gets dirty. Why not wash it?
Yeah.
And I went, I probably hadn't heard too much about the idea of the spirit and that kind of thing was in your belt. I guess just in my head, I probably hadn't gone, oh yeah, it's the same kind of thing, right?
Well,
but from that point on, like I certainly don't wash my belt every time I wash my gi, but
you do wash it.
I try to train hard, so therefore sweat. And if my belt is dirty, or if I've done a big class of rolling around on the floor or grappling or that kind of thing, well, of course I'm going to wash my belt. It's a piece of clothing.
Yeah.
But I know that can be controversial.
Well, the other controversial thing about the belt is if you look at a lot of Okinawans, they generally just have a very nice black belt, not frayed, not hanging off. And my Japanese instructor is the same. He's like, he'll constantly change his belt.
Yes.
So it's nice and neat and fresh,
yep,
rather than look like it's been hanging around your waist and rotting for the last 40 years.
Yep.
So well, I think that the guys who don't wash their belt and don't want the karate spirits coming out are probably the same guys who spend 15 minutes before the class bowing to everybody who's done karate beforehand and their uncles and aunties and grandmas and grandpas. Stay tuned for the next part where Reece and I talk about Okinawa. Thanks for listening, guys. And if you'd like more information, check us out at karateovercoffee.com.
Or have a look at wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be on Spotify, iTunes, on the website or online. And I look forward to grabbing a coffee with you next time.